Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Davidson and I'm the founder of Hello Fearless, which is the school for female entrepreneurs. Each week we do in-depth video interviews with women who have built incredible businesses and lives as part of our Fearless Founders series. And this week I'm so excited to share an interview with my close friend, mentor, and my coach, Nisha Moodley, who is a women's leadership coach. She's a creator of Fierce, Fabulous, Free, the Freedom Mastermind, and the virtual Sisterhood. She's really inspired by her belief that the world will be set free by women who are free, and that sisterhood is the key. And I will tell you that Hello Fearless would not exist without Nisha. In fact, when I was owning my previous business, I was incredibly burnt out. I knew that it wasn't the business that made me feel alive. It wasn't aligned with who I am and the type of impact that I wanted to create in the world. And I was really unfulfilled and was blaming all these outside circumstances on it. And I discovered Nisha and started working with her. And through that process, really discovered who I am as a woman, what my strengths were and my weaknesses were, what I was truly passionate about, and really starting to live a more integrated life. And through that process, I came up with the idea of Hello Fearless, and it was through her guidance as well as the support of all these other women that we have in this group that are aspiring or existing female entrepreneurs that gave me the loving, supportive, non-judgmental sisterhood that I had to make my dreams a reality, which is what we're creating with Hello Fearless. And her story is so impactful, where she came from, how she went after her dreams, how she stopped being a foodaholic, a workaholic, a shopaholic, and truly built this movement to support other female entrepreneurs, and that's a very successful, inspiring business. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Hi, love.
Hi, so happy to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to have you. Guys, this is Nisha Moodley, who is my mentor, my coach, my dear friend, and the person that I'm so excited for everyone to have a chance to get to know and hear her entire story. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. And there's nowhere else I'd rather be right now.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first off, I'd love for you to give a little bit of your background to our viewers who don't know who you are, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, so I'm a women's leadership coach. I'm the creator of Fierce, Fabulous, Free, the Freedom Mastermind, and the virtual Sisterhood. And all of my work is focused around the belief that the world will be set free by women who are free, and that sisterhood is the key to a woman's freedom. So I create communities of ambitious, change-making women, bring them together in that space of supportive, loving sisterhood. And then we really look at what is the next level of intrinsic and extrinsic freedom for them so that they can move to that next level and be more of a leader within their lives and within the world. So,
Yep. And so obviously I'm a part of that and have experienced that, and I love that. So was that where did you start off with that mission when you very first became an entrepreneur?
no. So, so I started my first business in 2007. It was called Nishani Wellness.
Okay.
I wanted to do some play on my name. And I was a health coach. I was putting myself through school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And I had overcome emotional eating myself and wanted to support other women in doing the same. So I started out as a health coach back in 2007. And really, it's interesting to see now that it's always been about freedom for me. Then it was freedom with food, and now it's just complete freedom. But that thread has always been there. So in a way, it was my mission without me fully knowing it. But really at that time, the focus was around helping women create freedom with food and also therefore be living more sustainable lives.
Okay, so did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or how did you even get into nutrition? I know you moved to New York from
Yeah.
Canada, and so what was that process like?
Yeah. So it's funny. My mom always jokes that when I was a little girl, I would, when I was playing games, other little girls were nurses and ballerinas and doctors and teachers, and I would say, I don't know if I can remember it right now, but I would say I'm the CEO, vice president of marketing, and like chief of whatever. I had
Stop
this like crazy
it.
long title, basically all the jobs. I was the CEO, COO, CFO, CMO. I was everything. I
You
was all that.
ran everyone else, all
Yeah.
of the children that were
I
running
wanted
the
to be the
business.
boss.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that I've always, really felt more creatively inclined. When I was a kid, I was really into writing and creative writing, and I used to make up commercials. Like my favorite game when I was 11, 12, 10 was to make commercials, like jingles and perform commercials and do that whole thing. It was just really fun. I was really into marketing. And and I definitely, had this little bit of a kind of entrepreneurial spirit from childhood. And even when I was 11 years old, I wasn't allowed to babysit until I turned 12. So 3 days before my 12th birthday, I made business cards and a one-page contact sheet with testimonials. And my tagline was, get this, bold statement, the best babysitter in the world. And then I started
Validated by
babysitting.
testimonials that you did not yet, or was it from people that knew
Well,
you?
I remember being really grateful at that time that my mom and I had different last names because I was like, nobody will know that it's my mom. I was really like my mom and my best friend's mom for babysitting our younger siblings. But, then I started a babysitting network because I realized I had too much work and I wanted to teach other babysitters my tricks. And I had this like Mary Poppins bag. I would go and do like read tarot cards with the kids I was
Oh.
babysitting. Do Ouija with them. I'm sorry to all your parents if you're, freaked out.
Watching this, yeah, but a little outside of the box. You're like, I'm gonna try new things. I'm gonna go do this, and it's a different approach.
Yeah, it was kind of always blending the creative and the spiritual and the entrepreneurial. And I think in a way that really hasn't changed for me. So what happened was around, I don't know, when I was in my early 20s, I don't know what year exactly it was, but I was living in Vancouver, Canada. And I had been working in the cosmetics industry for many years. I had been climbing the ranks, and I, especially for my age, was quite successful in my career. I had a job a position that most people my age didn't have. And I, felt like I was kind of primed to really move up in my company or even within the industry at large and go into sort of major national or global roles. So it was an exciting time. It was an exciting business. Working in cosmetics was very high energy. And I, at that time, went through a breakup. Seem to be really important turning points in my life, breakups. But I went through a breakup with,
Same.
yes, the first person that I ever, probably the only person, until my ex husband that I thought, oh, I'm going to marry
Yeah.
this person. And we were really in love. We moved in together, and within 6 months, it was done. And I was moving out, and I was super heartbroken. Didn't know what to do with myself, and so I started going to yoga. Felt like this is a healthy outlet. I was a food addict at the time. So I realized that, eating a mini frozen pizza twice a day wasn't going to help me feel better about myself or my breakup. So I started going to yoga. And through yoga, I started getting into, um, eating better. And so I was just naturally gravitating towards healthier foods. And then I started to become passionate from there about environmental sustainability. So I started getting this passion growing for health and environmental sustainability, and it grew like wildfire. And my life just started to transform. I started going to yoga. I also started getting into painting and photography. I started making jewelry. And I'm also taking better care of myself physically. And so this change is happening. And I started to become rapidly misaligned with the career track that I was on. So I was going to work during the day, wearing 18 items of makeup. That was our quota. We had to wear 16 or 18 items of makeup.
Wow.
Yeah. We can have that conversation another
That's
day.
just
Most women are like, what? But yes, you can do it. So I would go to work during the day wearing all this makeup and be really done up and be kind of in this like, like working my headset, like cheering on teams and, this whole thing. And then at night I would go to wash it all off, go to my yoga class and be like, reading sutras and, going to, like alcohol free, like kombucha midnight yoga. and I was just started to live this double life. And I started to realize that something had to change. I wanted a career change. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I'll try to shorten this story, but I ended up getting a bridge job. And it happened like literally overnight. I went to my naturopath's office. I walked in, I saw the woman that was working behind the desk, and I was like, this looks like an amazing job. She's calm, she's happy, she's working in this beautiful, healthy environment. She's, this is the environment that I wanted to be in. And I literally left my doctor's appointment and called the office. And I can't believe I did this, but I just said, hi, I realized that this is kind of like asking for your job because I've never seen anyone else work there, but you just seem so happy. And this is the kind of job that I think I'm looking for. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm going to nursing school. I'm leaving in 2 weeks. We're looking for somebody. And I walked right back, had my interview. And the next day, the day after making the decision, I really need a new job, I walked into my job, gave my notice, and 2 weeks later I had started. And I stayed there for 6 months. I fell in love again, that time with the man that I would marry, moved to New York, and was working under the table for $7 an hour at a cookie factory.
Okay, so what is it? First off, talk about what a bridge job is.
Yes, so the bridge job was, okay, this isn't my career.
Yeah.
But I don't, like, this isn't my big dream job.
Yep.
But I need something to bridge the gap from where I am now to that big dream job. And I didn't
That doesn't suck the life out of you.
It doesn't suck the life out of me. So, even my $7 an hour cookie factory job was a bridge job. And in part, I was making next to nothing, but I had time. And so what I needed time. I also needed the mental, emotional space. I needed a break from working in the cosmetics industry as I had for almost 9 years. I needed something to move me in the direction of greater alignment towards what I was working towards. I didn't know what I was working towards, but I knew that my cosmetics job was out of alignment and that I need something in greater alignment. That bridge job became, that first one, working at the naturopath's office, was the first step career-wise to getting me into greater alignment. So then I fell in love, hopelessly in love, moved to New York, and now the pressure was on because I didn't have a solid regular income. I didn't have my friends nearby. I didn't have my career in cosmetics that I'd worked so hard to build to fall back on, really. It was too late to go back there, but I didn't know where I was headed. And so I was working at this cookie factory and just, and later in a tea shop. And I would just spend all my time because it wasn't very, intellectually demanding work. I could spend that brain space, that heart space that I had really, really thinking about and feeling, what is it that I want? And so I had my epiphany where I realized, as all entrepreneurs do, there's some epiphany moment where we're like, yes, that's the thing that I want to do. And my big epiphany was, wow, health is the ultimate grassroots movement. And
at that time, were you envisioning the life that you wanted or just to feel fulfilled in a career that you were totally passionate about?
Great question. It was both. So I had left this 9 to 5, job, corporate job, and I was working in this cookie factory and I was making next to nothing, but I had this feeling for the first time, like I can create anything. I have a blank canvas here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very small blank canvas. It doesn't have, I was barely, my husband and I were barely making ends meet. I mean, we were like counting quarters, and I'm in my mid 20s. Like,
right.
Friends are like getting married and buying new toilets and doing renos and having babies. And I'm literally counting quarters. And I remember this conversation with my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time, where we're like, oh, I don't think we should go to the city today. We lived in Jersey City. I don't think we should go into the city today because it's going to cost $7.50 to get there and back, and we just don't have it. I mean, we didn't have $7.50 to spare. This is like 8 years ago. This is not long ago.
Right.
So it was a lifestyle thing. I had this blank canvas. I can create anything. I was looking forward to my friends who were getting married and, doing renovations and in their careers. I was also looking back at my younger cousin and younger people who I saw traveling the world and going, I'm not in either of those places. Like I'm not, ready to have kids, but I also haven't traveled. Like I want to see the world. When is that going to happen?
So you had this inner voice that was telling you, like, I definitely want more.
I want more. Yeah. I want a fulfilling career that is something that I love, that I feel like is making a difference in the world. And I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to be healthy myself. I want to have time to go fly back across the country and visit my family. So I started to gel this dream around how it would look and feel for me to have this life that I so wanted.
Is this before you knew about, vision boarding or Danielle Laporte's, how do you, like the desire map and how you want to feel? You just were already...
Yeah, the desire map didn't exist out in the world
right.
yet. I had like been brought up in the world of affirmations and vision boards, and I had been kind of doing that stuff since I was like 12 and 14.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily have a solid framework, certainly not for entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have a framework that was particularly action oriented. It was like, pray on it. I was like, okay, what do I pray on? And what I say to my friends and clients now is, get a vision of the future. Like, how will it feel? And what's your ideal? Like, what are the sort of the feminine approach? How will it feel? The masculine approach? Like, what's the sort of like nitty gritty day to day? Like, what's the picture? That I want to create. So it would be like if Danielle Laporte's desire map and Cameron Harold's painted picture had a baby. It's this, how would it feel and what's the ideal? And so without sort of having that framework necessarily yet, I started to do that for myself.
Yeah.
How will it feel? What's my ideal? And so I had this aha moment where I realized health is the ultimate grassroots movement. This is what I want to do. I want to study nutrition. I signed up for integrative nutrition at that time where we didn't know where we were going to get $7.50 from, and just figured, okay, I've got, however many $100 a month of tuition, I'm going to figure it out. I don't know how. I don't have the money. I don't have a loan. I don't have access to a loan. I don't, my parents will help me if, they're not going to let me be homeless, but they're also not going to pay for my tuition. Mm-hmm. So I'm on my own with this one. And I got to figure it out. And I hustled. I worked a lot. I sold my jewelry. I was so enthusiastic. By the way, I think that's the key ingredient is enthusiasm. I was so enthusiastic. Never, it was frustrating, but never was I like, oh, I have to work this stupid job. I was like, sweet, I'm going to work this job so that I can make this money to pay my tuition.
It's like the investor in your dream. Basically.
Yeah, I was my own investor. Mm-hmm. I had to be an enthusiastic investor. And so I hustled my butt off and I did it. I put myself through school. I started building my business. And then I just continually kept putting myself out of my comfort zone over and over and over. I didn't want to do, I remember when they taught this class at Integrative Nutrition about teleclasses. Like, oh, you do teleclasses and workshops. And I remember just zoning out for that part of the conversation. I was like, not going to do that. Teleclasses, yeah, I'm not going to do the whole like online thing. I'm just going to get clients. I'm going to have my website, and then people are just going to find it and they're going to want to work with me, and it's going to be great, and it'll all unfold organically. Turns out it doesn't quite,
right
for me.
I'm just going to manifest clients into my life. No.
Yeah, I'm just going to pray on it.
At this time, did you have other friends that were making big things happen or that were entrepreneurs? Or, what was your situation with the girlfriends in your life or people that when you're making these big leaps or taking these risks, what was going on?
Not really, although I advise that anyone else have that.
Yeah.
I did in that my husband is a musician. And so his circle of friends, most of them didn't have, 9-to-5 type jobs. They were making their art. And there was this courage, this chutzpah, this devotion to doing what they love that was so inspiring and really so helpful for me to be in the world of. So surrounding myself by artists was certainly helpful at that time. What I did have was at that tea shop that I worked at for a while, after the cookie factory, which, by the way, was literally called the Cookie Factory. I worked at this tea shop. And the woman who I worked with is now one of my dearest friends. And we would make tea. We would get hopped up on tea, and we'd serve the customers, and we would talk, and we would talk, and we would talk. And we would spend all day talking about what it was that we wanted to create. And we launched our businesses in the same year. I started doing health coaching. She created a company called Bag the Habit. They make reusable shopping bags that are the best in the world. And so I had this partner in crime who, even though we weren't building a business together, we were building businesses. We were nudging one another. We were getting our confidence up by giving one another advice and then being like, oh, that's great advice. I'm going to implement that. When somebody implements your advice, it's so strengthening. I think it's something that as entrepreneurs, we so need, not only to receive support, but to give your time to give support. Because why not, why not give while you're receiving? And also it's so strengthening to your own sense of confidence to know, wow, I do have some good ideas in here. I do know more than I think I know about this stuff. So I had Liz, and I also, had my friends from school, and I really did at that time make a point to create little mini mastermind groups with them and to stay in touch with the people who were also building businesses. Even though we were all on the same level, there wasn't kind of a mentorship thing going on, which would have been really helpful. I did have those other people who were ambitious, who were going for it.
Yep, that support system as you're going through school. Okay, so you graduate. And
so I graduated, hung my shingle, started one by one building my client roster. And, over the sort of 3 years that followed, I really built this solid business, coaching women and sort of evolved to have this strong niche around supporting women to find freedom with food. And, had a great website. My business was going really well. But I wasn't doing so well.
How did you find those clients?
Yeah, it was a lot of heart and a lot of hustle. So I realized that the way that I was going to scale this business was one-on-one clients, building up my one-on-one client roster, getting my confidence with working with people one-on-one, and then starting to do group programs and retreats and so on and sort of grow it that way. But I needed that one-on-one experience. So somebody broke it down for me one day and they were like, listen, it's really just simple math. If you want 20 clients, that means you're probably going to have 60 or 80 conversations with people. Or if you're going to have 80 conversations, you're going to have to get in front of, whatever, 240 people. I'm like, okay. So I started every month, I would do a workshop and a teleclass, My first workshop, like 3 people showed up to.
and you're like, I'm screwed. It didn't happen overnight. Like,
well, actually, my first workshop, 20 people showed up to. And I was so nervous that I had everything typed out, a 90-minute workshop, word for word. And I had it on my husband brought a music stand. I had it on a music stand, like a mini podium. And I was shaking so badly. I was sweating and I was shaking, and I could feel that my face was red and hot. And I was basically reading them this. Oh, it was terrible. And then halfway through, all the papers fell all over the ground. So there were participants in the front row, like helping me gather my papers. And I just remember in that moment thinking to myself, I want to cry right now. Like, I want to climb under a rock. I want to shrivel up and die. I want to disappear. I don't want to be here. I'm done. I hate this. I'm over. I don't want to be here. And it was that just split second of reckoning where I was like, well, you can't. Like, you can't just cry and run away. These people, you're in the middle of a presentation.
Yeah.
You can't climb under a rock. You can't shrivel up and die. You can't start crying and run away. Just finish this thing. Just do it. And there was something in that moment of just being like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I did it. And, I never want to relive that experience again. It totally sucked. But even though it was so hard, and I literally had the thought, I want to die in the middle of my presentation, I did it again the next month. And that time, 3 people showed up. And of course, I went in my head like, oh my God, the first one was so terrible that now no one's ever going to come and see me. I had 3. Next time, nobody's going to show up. I'm probably going to have people picketing. Like, this is so bad. Maybe I'm not meant to do this. I'm not very good. She's an amazing public speaker. That person has something important to say. I don't know, like the whole thing. And I did it again anyways. And every month I did an in-person workshop and a teleclass, an in-person workshop and a teleclass. And I just kept doing them, and I kept getting better.
Do you think that because you were so, even when we met, we talk a lot about being grounded in your why, that you were so driven by that even if you could impact 1 person, 2 people, that helped you persevere when you hit these roadblocks or people weren't necessarily showing up right out the gate?
It was, I think 2 things. It was, 1, being really connected to that sense of why I was doing what I was doing, exactly what you said, which was my why for me and my why for the world. My vision for my future and my vision for what I wanted to create in the world, the kind of support that I wanted women to have and what difference that would make for them. It was that, and it was also, I was proud of myself. I let myself feel proud of myself for trying. That first workshop was really hard. It wasn't very good. I didn't get any clients from it, but I was being the kind of woman that I wanted to be, embarrassment and all. I was being a woman who was doing her best, who was following through, who was putting her big girl panties on and doing it because I had a cause that I believed in. And that little bit of pride, I find that we don't often let ourselves feel proud of ourselves. We spiral into the story of how much we suck and we shouldn't be doing it and someone is better than me and blah, 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 blah. And we completely miss the point that we're doing it. And that's amazing. I mean, imagine if every single baby just gave up when they tried to crawl or walk because they're like, well, they can do it better than I can, and it sounds silly to compare yourself to a baby, but geez, like they've figured something out that we forget, which is there's a joy in just doing it. There was a joy in, even though it was terrifying, like I did not like public speaking. I do it a ton now, and I actually enjoy it now. But at the time, I hated it. I mean, I hated it. But there was a thrill, a joy in being like, I'm building a business. Like, and I'm going to see this through. And that, papers flying all over the stage, or 3 people showing up, or my first teleclass, 3 people showed up and I forgot to record the first half of it. Like, all those problems.
Yeah.
I knew that they were stepping stones. And as I saw myself get better, and I saw that, wow, this 5th workshop, like, I felt good. I felt more in my groove. Or that 20th sales conversation with somebody, like, yeah, I'm getting this. Or understanding, like, researching sales copy and realizing, oh, I'm getting better at this. I actually have like a little bit of a talent for copywriting. And so I just had to stick with it. And it was that connection to the bigger why, and also this joy and the pride that I felt in just doing it and just going for it, that kept me moving forward.
Okay, so I know that then you kept busting your ass and built your client roster and built this business, and then you hit burnout.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
So it was around 2009, 2010. And I was married, and I was working all the time. And my business was sustainable. I built it to the point of, steady revenue and happy clients, and kind of had my groove. If I needed a couple new clients, I knew how to make that happen, right? So I had that inner security built in as well around building my business. And I got in, and, there were a couple of things that happened around that time, but one that comes to mind in this moment is I was in an argument with my ex-husband. We were really struggling in our marriage. And I had been up until like 4:00 the night before, eating popcorn, working on my website or something. And we got in this argument, and I felt myself go completely numb. And I said, I don't have time for this. I have work to do. And I went to my computer, and I started working, and I looked at him in the other room, and he was crying. He was like really upset and just like hurt. And I remember thinking, this is so messed up. Like, I created this business so that I could have more freedom in my life, so that I could make a difference. And look at me. I'm not free. I realized that I was using work the same way that I had used food. I was using work, and I was passing it off like, but I love work, and I need to work. This is my mission. Like, I need to.
My life and work are the same.
My life and work are the same. But like, working and sleeping aren't the same thing. So you need to sleep, people. Working and eating aren't the same thing. You need to eat. And so, yes, there was a way that my life and work were married, and I was avoiding the difficulty in my relationship. I wasn't taking as good a care of myself. Like, this whole reason why I started Health is the Ultimate Grassroots Movement, that aha moment. I wasn't particularly healthy. My relationship was falling apart. There was an unhealthiness in our relationship. I wasn't taking care of myself as much anymore. And I was no longer really this ambassador for freedom, even though I wasn't emotional eating. It was like really clear to me that this was a huge misalignment. So again, misalignment, light bulb went off.
Right.
And it was around that time that the Dalai Lama spoke at the World Peace Summit in Vancouver, and he said the world will be saved by the Western woman. And I remember being like, which ones?
Is that me, really?
Because I'm a Western woman, so I have all the freedoms that a Western woman has. I'm doing something that I feel like it makes an important difference in the world. So I'm, doing my work to save the world. But I'm burnt out, overwhelmed, overworked, on the brink of divorce, not particularly healthy. So which ones of us are going to save the world? And I realized that the only possible answer would be that it would be those of us who were actually being the change that we wanted to see. And so that if I wanted women to be more free in their lives with food, even if it was just with food, I needed to be free in my life. And so I started exploring, what does it really truly mean to be free, right? If I'm no longer going to use work as a way to avoid the other things in my life, but I'm actually going to face all of my life head on. And I'm going to make my self-care my job as much as I make, writing this newsletter my job. What does that look like? And so I really set upon this big life transformation in the last several years since that happened, both for myself, and it's also really radically shifted my work. And I started getting more entrepreneurs coming to me because I could actually congruently, I was just shining on a brighter level because I was actually more willing to share what was going on in my personal life on my blog and in my work, because I didn't have anything to hide anymore. So that is sort of how this whole transition happened for me. I started really traveling. I kept building my business, scaling my business, coming into greater alignment with my work and my message. And that's how it's flowed since.
So I read this, I think it was with your friend Sarah Jenks, that you guys had a conversation about, what's the point of making a living if you don't have a life?
Yeah.
So how did you manage that existing business that you had while starting to play around with, okay, this is crap, I actually need to have more space and more freedom and doing that? How did you transition into this more integrated person?
Yeah. So the first thing was instantly adopting the mindset that if I have to work, 14 or 16 hours a day to run this business, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I have to find a way to run this business and grow this business with less time now, period. End of story. Not after the next launch, not after because I had done the whole, when I get to six figures, then I got to six figures. Well, when I get to, 200,000, well, I got to 200,000. There was always a next. When I get through this launch, well, I went past that launch. It didn't change anything. I worked harder, if anything. And so I just had to adopt the mindset, I need to find a way now to work less and have more of a life and enjoy my life more and actually be the ambassador of what it is that I stand for. And I think that was key for me, getting deeply that, fine, I'm not emotional eating, but if I'm not attending to freedom in my life, I'm a fraud. And I just had to face that for myself. And it sucked, And so I think for all of us as entrepreneurs to really look at, what is the core thing that my company, that I'm standing for? And then am I actually standing for it, or am I just the talking head? So for me, really getting that, and then getting that right now, I need to find a way to grow this. And that, it brought up the enthusiasm again, to come back to enthusiasm. It just brought this okay, there is a win-win, and I'm going to find it, and I'm going to find it now. And so what I started off by doing really simply is just making more plans, scheduling vacations, taking nights off, and actually forcing myself to shut my computer. I hired a relationship coach so I could figure out things in my marriage. I really just started putting my attention around all the different areas of my life that needed my attention, because my business had more than enough. And what I found is that I was giving myself less time to work, and I was way more productive. And I was doing the most important things that actually moved the needle forward, rather than spending a ton of time doing things that seemed important but actually weren't moving the needle forward as much. And then kind of from 2 to 4 in the morning doing the really important things. So I'm just compacting everything and doing the most important things first. So really it was about being productive. And I think that productivity isn't about doing more. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. It's not about doing more. It's about doing better. Yeah. And so I learned how to be productive by doing better instead of by doing more.
Okay, so, and I'm not sure if you want to touch on this, but you keep talking about your ex-husband. So
Mm.
obviously you went through a divorce in the midst of running a company, and you're doing all this personal growth and development and, getting more integrated and making more time for yourself. And so what was that transitional process like? And then moving into the next phase of your business where you were doing more scalable things where you started hiring people and that.
Yeah. So yeah, so I went through a divorce while I was, my business was like on this steady incline, and I think, just hired my
But
first.
you have a life outside of your business. I just want to clarify that, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Um, yeah, I went through this divorce, and I had just hired my first team member at that time. So I had an assistant, and it was a difficult time. It was an exhilarating time, like divorcing, moving. I ended up, while we were, in the year that we separated, I met someone else and fell in love. So there's like all these massive life transitions happening. And my business was tripling in income that year in revenue. So it was just a huge year. And what I found was that I needed support system more than ever. I
Mm.
needed not only to have my assistant and then the other people that, I ended up hiring, those few people on my team, really take the reins. And I just shared with them what was going on in my life, really honestly. I realized that there was no way that they could fully support me if they didn't know what was going on with me. So I shared with them, this is what's going on with me. And I think that when we are in leadership positions, sometimes we feel like we're not supposed to let our cards be shown. We're not supposed to show our cards, and or that it's inappropriate. And I'm like, screw that. Like, I'm creating this company culture. Like, I get to say what's appropriate and inappropriate. I think it's
Amen.
to have giant life secrets from one another and not be able to talk about what's going on in our personal life. Like that's inappropriate. I wanted to create a space, a culture in my company where we could talk about what was going on in our personal lives, where we knew one another's, you know, partners' names, kids' names, my business manager now, like, I know the spa to send her to. I want to send her to the spa. Like, we're in one another's lives. We're family in that way. And so I really shared with them what was going on so that they could, so that they could figure out how they could best support me through that time. I learned to delegate.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, I learned to delegate. I always say that some of the best entrepreneurs are moms because they're so time poor and they're kind of attention poor because they've got these little humans that they're raising. And it just makes them like really good at delegating in many cases and like laser focused.
Yep.
And that's kind of what divorce did for me. It made me way better at delegating and laser focused. Like, I'm crying 6 hours a day. Great. That means I've got two left. What am I going to do with my 2 hours of work? And I would just focus. Um, the other thing I needed was my girlfriends. And so I just leaned on my friends and knew that the more that I could receive their love and support as I went through this difficult time in my life and all these transitions, the more I could share all of my fears and crazy with them, even if I felt like a broken record, even if I felt like a burden, even if I felt like I was taking up too much space. I knew that if I could do that, if I could really allow myself, first of all, it would open the doors for them to receive that kind of support when they needed it. But also that I would heal faster and more completely. And I would be able to get back to my work
Yeah.
more wholeheartedly faster. And that was going to impact the world in a much deeper, broader way than me trying to work with my ego to to not be too much of a burden on people. I realized like I'm here for a mission, and to rock my mission, I can't I have to learn to let go of control that I have to take care of myself and I have to read every single email and take care of every single detail and do everything myself and like also handle my emotional state and be perfectly put together. Like, no, I need to let it all hang out and then let people hold the parts that I can't hold so that I can heal, come back together and be of service and bring more of that open heart into my work. So I think really it was team, and then vulnerability with them, delegation, asking for support, entrusting them, getting the right people on board, A players.
Yep.
And then my girls, like Sisterhood. I needed them.
Okay, so through that process then, is that where, because you're more than just a health coach now. Obviously, you just launched your new website, and I'd love for you to share your new mission. I can read it for you too if you'd like. That's an adaptation of, what the Dalai Lama talked about and what you're currently creating, which I think is such a culmination of you building the team, getting aligned in your mission and everything that you've gone through, and you're like, holy shit, every woman entrepreneur, every woman needs what I have, and that's what you provided to me, and that's what you provide to so many hundreds of women. So I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, so the message around 2010 became the world will be set free by women who are free.
Mm-hmm.
It was that marriage.
Can I get a hey, amen?
Amen. Yeah. So it was, a marriage of the world will be saved by the Western woman and being the change. The world will be set free by women who are free.
Yeah.
And it evolved over time to also incorporate the fact that sisterhood is key to a woman's freedom.
Yeah.
And so my business has evolved as I've grown. And the message as I sort of went through my workaholism and that last stage of deep addiction after, years of being a food addict and then shopping addict. And then of course, workaholism had its place in my life. I realized, okay, there's a way that health is the ultimate grassroots movement, and I can support people who are supporting other people who are supporting other people even through this message that the world will be set free by women who are free. And sisterhood is the key to a woman's freedom. And so I started just over time, my work has evolved. I realized that I really wanted to work with women who were out to save the world, who were making a difference in the world, to help them develop the next level of expansion in their freedom. And it just sort of evolved both through my work, doing retreats and group programs and seeing what happened in the space of sisterhood and how impactful it was for a woman in her own freedom, in her healing, in her growth, in her development, to have this group of women rallying around her. And then also in my own life, going through my divorce and realizing how impactful it was for me to have my circle of sisters around me. I realized, okay, it's really the marriage of these two things, freedom and sisterhood. And if I can support, healers and coaches and, authors and women who are creating programs that will impact, hundreds of thousands of women around the world, then I get to be part of this ripple effect in a different way. And so I started to shift my focus away from just working with women around emotional eating, which is still so valuable, to kind of supporting the woman who would support the women around emotional eating, to help them unlock their freedom in the space of sisterhood so that they can rock their mission even in an even bigger way.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so what's next for you? I know that you're doing so many things. You have multiple masterminds. You have your hands in a lot of different stuff. So I'd love for you to touch on that. And then obviously where people can find more about you and all your programs.
Yeah. So I'm currently working on a program that's going to be coming out in the fall called Fierce, Fabulous, Free. And it's an 8-week course in living for ambitious women on a mission. And so it's really about looking at all of these different areas of our life as ambitious women on a mission, let's bring our attention to those areas of our life, our relationships, our spirituality, our health and vitality, all the different areas of our life, our money, so that we are eyes wide open, so that we are really engaged in creating the next level of freedom in our own lives so that we can rock our mission in a bigger way. So that program I'm really excited about. It's coming out soon. I'm also working on a program called the Virtual Sisterhood, which will kind of come out in tandem with that. And it's a year-long community-oriented experience that I'm really thrilled to be leading. And I still just love working with women on retreats and in mastermind type experiences. So I lead a annual retreat with my friend Sarah Jenks called Live Free. And that is happening in Sonoma in the fall. Depending on when this interview airs, we still have some spaces for that. So that's really exciting and just an awesome opportunity to get together with 100 other really enthusiastic, ambitious, beautiful women who are wanting to make a difference in their lives and in the world. So that's a really exciting opportunity. And lots more in store for 2015. I won't totally let the cat out of the bag. It's still getting, coming together, but I'm really excited about what's beyond as well. And so where people can find me, my website is nishamoodley.com. I'm on Twitter at Ask Nisha, and people can just search me on Facebook. They'll find me there.
Perfect. Well, I just love you, adore you, and you've been such a change agent for everything that I've created in my life. So thank you so much for being on here, and I love you.
I love you so much too, Sarah. Thank you so much for your work in the world, and I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Thanks, babe. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Hey everyone, I hope that you really enjoyed this interview with Nisha Moodley. And if you did, I'd love for you to share it on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or even share it with anyone that you think could really benefit from hearing Nisha's story. And also, be sure to subscribe to our Fearless Founder series so that you never miss an interview and you can always hear the tips and tricks that all of our Fearless Founders are going to be teaching you. So thanks so much for tuning in.